Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited to see so many people logged in here this morning. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know this morning that this session and every session today will be available with live Spanish interpretation. Para escuchar en español, oprime el símbolo del globo y elige español. My name is Blaine Cower, and I have the tremendous pleasure of serving as the Vice President of Homeowner Services here at Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity. And I am incredibly excited to welcome you to our biggest community event of the year, our 6th annual virtual home ownership fair. Give us a shout in the chat if you have been waiting for this event, y'all. We're so excited to see you here today. Each June, Dallas Habitat celebrates National Home Ownership Month by hosting this incredible event. We bring together some of the top experts in this field, in real estate, to educate, to empower, to inspire you to take the very first step on your journey towards home ownership. And, y'all, even as Dr. King said, if you can't see the whole staircase, if nothing else, just take that first step. And that's what y'all are doing here today, is taking your very first step. So pat yourself on the back. Huge congratulations to you for just showing up, waking up this Saturday morning and being here with us. An event of this magnitude would be impossible to put on without the incredible support of our generous sponsors. To all of you who have made today's event possible, we are so incredibly grateful for your commitment. We'd like to thank our returning presenting sponsors, State Farm and Prosperity Home Mortgage. Give them a shout in the chat, please, for all of your incredible support. And we'd also like to thank our educational sponsors who are hosting breakout sessions throughout today's event, including Bank of America, Mr. Cooper Group, First Horizon Bank, East West Bank, TSHAC, and TDHCA, among others. So thank y'all so much for being here today. Now, I could not be more excited to welcome our very special friend, a huge supporter of Dallas Habitat and the work that we do, and of course, the MC for today's event, the one and the only Lady Jade.
Hey, Blaine. Hi, everybody. Oh, Blaine, you have no idea how excited I am. I am not exaggerating when I say this. This literally is my favorite event of the year. Because not only are we coming to get empowered, right? We have a lot of fun while we're doing it. And we know that people are going to walk away no longer doubting, knowing that they can build generational wealth for their family. So, and I have to say this, every single year, this is the 3rd year you guys have had me back hosting with you all. Every year I'm like, okay, there's no way they can top last year on the speakers, right? And then when y'all send me the lineup, I'm like, they topped last year. So I have to say, the people that are going to be on today, the experts that you guys have brought on, you guys continue to top. I don't know how y'all do this.
I'll tell you, you know what? Honestly, Jade, to your point, this event has really developed a life of its own, right? And here's why I think that this really matters, because truthfully, Habitat's mission has always been really important. The work that we do has always been important. And that's what this event is about, really is about promoting affordable housing. But as we know right now, in the moment that we're in real estate, it has become more critical than ever.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Yes.
And so when we talk about the importance of having a safe and affordable place to call home, when we talk about the importance of accessing products and programs that are out there, it could not get more critical than the moment that we're in right now.
No,
and so
you're absolutely right.
We've got to level up and make sure that we are providing the most amount of resources in this area and bringing the best of the best to this event. So we're just really excited to kick the morning off with you.
Well, I'm so glad you guys had me back because, again, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I love this freaking event. I walk away learning something and being inspired every single year as well. So let me ask you, what should they expect from attending today?
Let me tell you something. We have got something for everyone here today. So what I want you to know, y'all, if you're tuning in today, no matter where you are in your home buying journey, there's going to be a session for you here today. We're talking about everything from really financial foundations, making sure that we've got our own financial house in order, to some of the amazing products and programs that are out there specifically for first-time buyers. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about first-time buyer mortgage products. We're talking about down payment assistance programs. In fact, Jade, you're going to be hosting our down payment assistance panel later. Yeah. That's going to be an incredible conversation. I would say one of the most popular topics for first-time buyers, right? But then also we're going to be talking about the state of affordable housing inventory here in Dallas. And of course, Dallas Habitat is a leader in this. And so if nothing else, of course, we've got to talk about what it is that we do at Habitat. So be sure if you're tuning in this morning that you stick around until the end of today's event, 2 p.m. My team will be hosting a session on what it is that Dallas Habitat can do to help support you in your home buying journey.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because when I first partnered with Habitat years ago, I thought you only built homes.
Right.
And then when you guys took me through everything you all do, which everybody will find out later on, I was like, what the heck? I have really been missing out. So I'm glad you said that. So yes, everybody, make sure you stick around to the end, because you have no idea the resource that Habitat can be in your life towards homes ownership and a lot of other things as well. So, they have a lot of little hidden gems that, a lot of people don't know about. So I'm glad. Real quick, Blaine, there are prospective home buyers on here. Everybody, I see you in the chat. Thank you for saying hello. People are excited. They're saying, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. What about the ones that are feeling a little discouraged? What words of advice would you offer them?
Yeah. And that's so many of us right now, again, right? Because all we hear about, and this is constant. I mean, I've heard so many stories in the news about this lately here on a local level, like here in the Dallas news, right? About, geez, there's no affordable housing inventory. Interest rates are on the rise. I get it. I understand why people are feeling discouraged and are like, you know what? I'm just going to wait it out. But here's what I would tell you. And here's what the Habitat team would tell you, right? The best time to buy a house, realistically, probably 3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not in a position to be able to go back in time. And so the second best time to buy a house is right now. And the reason that we say that is because honestly, we're just going to keep it real. It's not going to get any more affordable in our market. We know there's so much, activity here in Texas. People are moving from out of state to come here for an affordable, quality of life and a good quality of life. And what that means is, it's going to become less and less affordable to be able to find a place to call home. And so really and truly, we would say, if you are otherwise ready for home ownership now, strike while the iron's hot, do it, because people who made that decision 2 to 3 years ago are now sitting here being very grateful for the fact that they took that chance. They took that leap 2-3 years ago. So fast forward from now, that could be you looking back and saying, thank goodness I made that move. And what I would say to our attendees today is, we know that it's tough. We're not going to sugarcoat it, right? It is tough out there, y'all. Okay, let us just be very clear about that. But it is not impossible. And we know that because, my team at Habitat is working with buyers day in and day out who are executing contracts, closing on houses, and not only Habitat homes, Jade, like you mentioned earlier, we work with families that are buying homes on the open market as well. Yeah. And so, yes, it is possible. This is not a theoretical thing. This is something that we see happening every single day. But truthfully, a lot of it boils down to working with the right partners, the right people who have the right products and the right programs. And that's what today's event is going to be about. So I would challenge you, if you're here today, to ask yourself, why not me?
I know that's right, Blaine. Look, I think we could just, Lord, that was good. Why not me? We're getting ready to go into our keynote speaker, but Blaine, thank you so much. Thank Habitat for everything that you all do. And to your point, when we're raising kids, we always say it takes a village. Well, as adults, we need a village, and Habitat today is providing a village for you, because yes, home ownership can look impossible, but if you have the right village around you, anything is possible. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Blaine. I'll see you in a little bit. I think we have some panels we're going to do together. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited. You all heard me tell Blaine, I think every year that they can never top what they did the year before, but they have, you guys. And this year's keynote speaker, her name, if you've never heard of her, is Dasha Kennedy. Y'all, she is amazing. I've been Insta stalking her. Okay. She's an award-winning financial activist for Black women. She's an educator. She's a creator of The Broke Black Girl. It's a digital community, you all, that provides culturally relevant financial literacy tools to 70,000 Black women to combat the racial and gender wealth gap, which we're going to discuss. Look, Dasha advocates for economic justice, cultural competence, and equity in financial education, and raises awareness on how systemic oppression affects Black women's ability to generate adequate wealth, which is the truth. Y'all, I am excited. She's on with us today. Dasha, if you are on, go ahead and unmute your mic, turn your camera on. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Let's see if we have Dasha on.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm fine, Lady Jade. I am so excited about this conversation. Even listening to you and Blaine really has me just inspire myself. So I am so looking forward to us having this conversation this morning.
Oh, me too. Okay, so I have to backtrack a little bit because I do want to brag on you. Did a little research. Now, I would just want to make sure this is true because sometimes Google can be a little off, right?
Okay.
Is it true that you got into finance at the age of 19 and then became a senior accountant by 24?
Yes, that is true.
Wow.
I started in the finance industry very, very young. I had no experience prior to that. And it was by way of my mom, which I'm going to get into that later, that helped me get into the finance industry. And solely working in that department, I was in the mailroom, but I worked around a lot of accountants, and a women are always looking out, took me under her wing and pretty much taught me everything that she knew. She pushed for me to apply for a different position, and I moved right on up from there.
Well, congratulations. I love that. Let's jump right into it because I know you have a lot of information. You're a financial activist for women, which I love, specifically women of color. I know you're super passionate about closing that racial and gender wealth gap. Think about it, Dasha. For so long, Black and brown communities have been systemically locked out of home ownership because of redlining. We have other discriminatory practices in real estate. And it's crazy to think that it wasn't until the 1970s that women could actually own and manage a property without a man co-signing for her, right? This is in the 70s. That's insane. These barriers have led to severe wealth disparities that still exist today. By the same token, home ownership continues to be the number one way to earn wealth in the U.S. So how exactly would you say home ownership helps women in communities of color close the wealth gaps that we face every day?
Well, we first have to consider what home ownership means.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, home ownership means power. And we have to consider what that type of power means to people who have been considered powerless in terms of building wealth, like women and communities of color. For us, it's more than just owning a home. One, we already know what home ownership can do for generations. We've seen what it has done for generations of people who's had access to purchase homes and pass down homes within their families in their generations. So for us, it's way more than just owning a home. We understand the financial benefit, but it's laying the foundation for your family to build generational wealth and also providing a sense of financial security, something we all should be striving for.
Absolutely. But in order to get the financial security, we need financial education, right?
Yes.
So you provide tons of resources to help advance equity for women of color. Why is the education aspect so important?
When we consider what finance has looked like for communities of color, for women, we understand that we have a very unique experience when it comes to building wealth. So creating culturally relevant and competent financial resources is important. Why is that important? Well, my experience with money is not the general most common experience. So just giving me some traditional finance advice doesn't help me when I'm up against so many other barriers. So creating resources as a woman of color for women of color, I understand the perspective in which the financial information has to be provided. It may not look like what someone else needs. It has to look very different because our experience with it is different. So when I think of financial advice created for women of color, it helps advance equity for us because it's meeting us exactly where we are at and it's aligning us for what we are up against with this process.
That's good. But if we're keeping it real, Dasha, it's super intimidating.
Yes.
It is, but just even the conversation of talking about finances for some people. Again, earlier Blaine had spoke about, people being afraid, and fear is paralyzing.
Yes.
Literally, it is paralyzing. So, what would you say to the people that have it in their mind already? They've already talked themselves out of it, and they're like, I can never achieve generational wealth. My mom and my dad were behind. My generation before was behind. I'm behind. And we're talking just based on their background. Like, what would you tell those people that are really discouraged today?
So one of the things that I learned very quickly about generational wealth is that it's not because of the barriers that we have had to endure for centuries. Our journey is not going to look like someone else's. We can't tie ourselves to someone else's timeline because that within itself is already discouraging when we accept that we're not running the same race. So what I learned very quickly is that generational wealth, there isn't just one way to do that, and it doesn't have to be built in one single generation. And when I started to look at generational wealth that way, it made these small actionable steps that I am doing right now that much more important because they'll make my son's life just a little bit easier financially. So when I think that the small things that I'm doing now, I may not build a multi-million dollar real estate. I may not build that in one generation, but I may do something that may make the next generation just a little bit easier financially. That's a part of building generational wealth. I was born into a multi-generational living home. I was the fourth generation inside of one home. My grandmother, she was the first person in our family that was able to purchase a home in the 1970s. And she had 4 generations living in that home. So because my grandma was able to do that, that made it a little bit easier for my great grandma was able to do that. That made it a little bit easier for my grandma, which made it a little bit easier for my mom, which my mom made it a little bit easier for me. So all of those small steps, it may not seem like much, it made a major difference off of that one home from the 1970s, having multi-generations living in that house, eliminating one of the largest expenses that we may have each month, which is the housing expense. It trickled down. So although it may not look like someone else's journey, you don't have to count yourself out in terms of building generational wealth because the small things that you can do and are doing is going to make a ton of difference for the generation that comes after you.
Dasha, I am so glad I hope people are listening today and literally, I hope you felt your shoulders drop. And the reason why I say that is because when we use terms like generational wealth and we're talking about buying homes and purchasing homes, which are these huge decisions, yes. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves because to us and what we see on Instagram and Facebook and social media is generational wealth is like you said, I am responsible for building this multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio and leaving, a lot behind so that my kids don't have to work and this and that. And when I tell you the way you just broke that down and made that so simple, those baby steps,
yes,
every single time made a difference for the next. And man, Dasha, that is so real. Woof.
Absolutely. When you change how you look at generational wealth, it really makes it attainable. And that's what we want. We want things that we can't attain because we actually can do this when we reframe how we look at it. I'm building generational wealth in baby steps. It takes the stress off me. I'm able to be present because I know that every day I'm taking a little step that's pushing me a little bit further. And if I'm taking these small steps and my son takes these small steps, ultimately our family is going to reach the finish line. And I think when we remove the one generation having to reach the finish line within a first couple of years of adulthood, it just makes the process that much easier. And it really feels like this is something that can be done because it can be done.
Yes, it absolutely can be done. I promise. I just think that that's so important is that you made it scalable now. Yes. You made it achievable now. Yeah, no, that's so awesome.
That's how you look at it. You run your race, now you pass it on to the next generation and they run their part and so on because the race never stops. So you're just passing it on.
Absolutely. Well, the housing market is so tight right now. I mean, we've never seen anything like this, at least, in my time. Buyers are having to make these super quick decisions on whether or not a home is right for them, right? Because everybody has their own specific needs. So first, can we talk about how to determine our needs when it comes to buying a home? Because we have some homework we got to do.
Yes. So when you think about needs and wants when it comes to a home, let's first establish what are needs. A need for me would be, I have two children, two boys. They're at the teenage age, so automatically I need separate rooms. That's a need for me.
Yeah.
When you consider location and the school system that you're going to be living in, those things to me are needs. Wants or jacuzzis, wants or the different type of carpet that you want in the house, or the cabinets. Those are wants. So when you really start establishing how much you can afford, which we know is very important. One of the first things that you need to do when it comes to determining what you can afford in a house or what you need in a house is very important to establish what your needs are. The needs are the things that you absolutely need in this home to feel comfortable, to feel safe, and to know that you've made the right choice. And the wants are things that you can bend on. It's not going to make or break the housing decision. So it's very important to draw a fine line there, because when you first start the home buying process, it's very easy to not even consider your budget, to not even consider your needs. Of course, it's an exciting time. You're going to go right to your wants, but those are probably things that you also can afford, and also things that you may not need. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a deciding factor in the middle, and that's the deciding factor between the wants and the needs.
So what do you suggest we make a list? Maybe wants, needs, and split it down the middle?
Yes, I think that would be very important. And I actually recommend that, having that in the notebook or a checklist that you use when you're even starting the home buying process. What are your needs? Consider the things that you need right now. And we have to be honest, and we have to be realistic with ourselves, that there are some wants that are actually wants. There are things that we do not need, or I think you probably could pass on a house with a jacuzzi if it's not in your budget. And you can focus on the things that you absolutely need in the home.
And you said that are not in your budget, and not in your budget right now, right? Because I think it's important to point out the fact that our starter home is not necessarily our forever home or our dream home. And those are two separate things, right?
Yes, I agree. A starter home is usually something that's much smaller, more affordable. It's something that you can use to just get your feet wet with the home buying process, and it helps you build equity. And a starter home is usually something you'll be happy staying in around 3 to 5 years, and you may even outgrow it. It does not have to be your forever home. Now, when you think about your forever home, on the other hand, that's usually something that's a little bit more expensive. You could potentially see yourself living there for the rest of your life, maybe the next 20 to 30 years. So your starter home does not have to be your forever home. So that's a very good point. Just because you have to say no to some things right now doesn't mean you have to say no to them in the future. And honestly, I would rather say no to something that I want right now in my starter home, just because I know this is going to put me in the position to say yes to the jacuzzi and the good carpets and the good cabinets in a few years in my forever home.
That's right. Don't look. We didn't say throw the want list away. We just said fold it in half and keep it for later on. Like you said,
Yes, absolutely. You don't have to take the wants out, because of course, when you're purchasing a home, that's a major decision. And eventually you're going to want the things that you desire. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we have to know what we can say no to now so that we can say yes later. And then when you get in a better position, especially you've understood the home buying process more, you've had more experience with it, yes, you will absolutely be able to say yes to those things that you want much later down the line.
That's good. So for everybody that's on today, how do you even start the process of knowing what kind of home you can afford for your first time purchase? I think that's everybody's thing, is like, we look at the price tag and we like, I don't make that much money. So how do we make that determination?
So first, let me say this: what you get approved for and what you can afford is two completely different things.
Deja, please say that again. Say it again.
Yeah, what you get approved for and what you can afford is two completely different things. That is vital. So for an example, you may get approved for a $400,000, $500,000 home loan. We have to be honest and we have to be realistic, and we have to call ourselves out and say, now, honestly, is this something that I can afford? And the answer may be absolutely not. And that is okay. You may only be able to afford monthly a $100,000 or $200,000 home. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's a good rule of thumb of keeping your mortgage payment below 28% of your monthly income. So you want to ask, why is that important? Well, just because you can't afford a certain mortgage on paper, you have other expenses that you have to consider. Your monthly expenses that you already have, and all of the additional expenses that is associated with the mortgage. So on paper, it may, when you do, the mortgage calculator, it may come out and it may seem affordable. But when you start adding in all of those additional factors, you realize very quickly that you cannot afford that. So understanding exactly what you can afford monthly is vital, and knowing that just because you get approved for it does not mean that it's something you can afford even now or long term. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being honest about that. This is not a decision you want to make lightly. It's not a decision that you want to rush. There are a ton of options with purchasing a home that we all should be aware of and take advantage of.
I love that. I hope y'all saw me pull out my pen. I hope everybody that is at home right now is writing things down. You said a number that I had never heard. You said consider it's 28% of your monthly income is probably the most that you should.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the reason why you want to keep it that low is to, let's say if anything happens with your monthly income, let's say it goes down by a few percentages. Because you have not exhausted all of your monthly income into this one expense, you still have some breathing room if your income was to change to be able to cover the most important expense that you would have, which is housing. So you don't want to exhaust all of your monthly income into your mortgage payment, because the slightest shift in your income can put you in a very damaging position with the thing that is going to be most vital to you, which is the roof over your head.
And the way that life goes right now, we're constantly shifting.
Yes.
So we always say plan for a rainy day. That's good. What was it? We had the, oh my God, I can't remember the name of it. Basically where the market crashed about 10, 15 years ago. And then all of a sudden, who would ever think almost 3 years ago, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes.
Like nobody saw that coming. But to your point, if we live within our means, which that is a great number, y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all take notes, get your notebooks out. We have a lot of information for you today. That's really good.
I think that if the last few years haven't taught us anything, it is to prepare for the rainy day, even when the rain is not in the forecast. So keep our expenses low, living within our means. And I know that is something that people probably hear a ton in personal finance advice, and it sounds so redundant, but it is the truth. Living within your means, that is how you prepare for the rainy day, even when it's not raining. Because if I'm not exhausting all of my income to my monthly expenses, and I'm able to put even just a little bit to the side, that is going to help me when the rain does come. That is going to help me when my income changes and I have to pull money from somewhere else to actually cover my housing expenses. The money is available because I haven't exhausted it in other spaces.
And Blaine, I said Blaine, because I just saw it in the chat. And Dasha, if the rainy day doesn't come, guess what? Now we're working in abundance.
Yes, absolutely. And you have that money to do other things. You have that money to take care of other expenses. And also consider, when you are already preparing for the rainy day, that's a cushion, which we all know that is something we all could benefit from.
Yes, Dasha. Woo, boy, I'm telling you. Okay, I love it. Okay, so we got to touch on a subject that I'm sure is probably on everybody's mind, but we do not like to discuss.
Okay.
Credit. We got to talk about credit, because it's super taboo. A lot of people count themselves out because it seems impossible sometimes to pay down debt, get your credit together. It can be very overwhelming. Sometimes just seem like a goal that you'll never reach. So realistically, Dasha, do home buyers need to have perfect or excellent credit to qualify for a mortgage?
No. Your credit does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be excellent, but understand that your credit is important, because lenders are going to consider that before they approve you for a home loan. There's a lot of different talk about credit and how important it is, or if you should do all things cash. I want to say this, especially as a woman, and especially as a woman for of color.
Mhm.
Credit is very important to me because for decades, we have struggled with access to capital, being paid unfairly, being pushed out of opportunities to build wealth, especially through home buying. So being able to leverage credit means a lot to us because there is a lack of capital. So your credit does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be excellent, but it is important.
So for those that are struggling with their credit right now, what are some of those factors that affect your credit score?
So a lot of things there are 5 factors that impact your credit score, and it's payment history, it's the amount that you owe, the different type of credits that you have, if you have any new credits, like you recently applied for anything new, and how long you've had the credit. But the one thing that I want to zone in on is payment history. That is the biggest factor when it comes to credit. Payment history basically is saying you have access to this credit, you are using this credit. Now, how well are you paying it off? How well are you paying it back? How well are you managing it? That is one of the most important factors when it comes to your credit score, paying your bills on time.
Ooh, look, a lot of people just said, okay, hold on. Don't log off, y'all. Don't log off. Yes, paying your bills on time is important, Dasha.
It is very important. I don't think people understand how much of that goes towards your credit. And paying your bills on time, we have to also understand what bills are reporting to our credit, because a lot of the bills that we pay monthly are not reporting to our credit, like our normal utility bills, phone bills. A lot of those are not reporting to our credit until we stop paying them. And of course, they go into collections. That's a whole other thing. But we have to be aware of what bills are actually reporting to our credit and making sure we are paying those on time. And paying bills on time can be so as simple as setting it up on automation. It can be simple as having a bill calendar. Even today, with everything that I know about finance, I am a very manual person. So I'm self-aware. So because I know that, I have a bill calendar where all of my bills are in my calendar and I manually pay my bills every day. For me, it takes the stress off of me. I handled it. I don't have to worry about it. It automatically came out of the account. But a lot of people do also use automation. But there are so many things that you can do to make sure you're paying your bills on time. And let's say something happens and you can't pay a bill on time. There is a very underrated practice with paying your bill on time that I think a lot of people overlook. And it is as simple as picking up the phone and communicating with your lenders.
Ooh.
So many lenders have hardship programs and grace periods that they are more than willing to offer you if you communicate with them. So that means don't dodge the letter. Don't
Yes.
phone. Don't ignore the emails and the notifications. It's so simple as picking up the phone, letting them know what's going on. I worked in collections for a very long time, so I know how powerful it is when a customer or client takes the initiative to give us a call. There are a ton of programs available that can help you offset those late payments, which have a huge impact on your credit.
I think it's the first time many people have heard that, because you're right. We do duck and dodge, and we've always been taught to avoid the creditor, the bill collector. And that's funny. You had that experience. So if people would call you during your experience, does it make you want to work with them more as opposed to you having to hunt them down?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you all this one tip as a person who worked in collections.
Okay.
You are trained to listen to hot words. Hot words meaning I'm facing a financial hardship. My income has changed. I am, if I have a medical issue. Those are hot words that a collector is trained to listen to, that then lets us know, okay, they are facing some type of financial hardship. This is my cue to offer the programs that we have available. They're not going to do that through email, through letter, through phone call, especially, or on a voicemail. But once you make contact and you let them be aware of what you have going on, that is considered a hot word that now I have to let this client know the programs that we have available. And one of the things that I tell a lot of the people that I work with is, You don't know this person. There's no reason to feel ashamed. You're probably never going to see them in person. They have no clue who you are. You simply just make the phone call. You don't have to be ashamed about what's going on, but you make the phone call, because then they'll be able to offer you programs that can ultimately help you. And that is the end goal, is to get you the help that you need. It does not do a collection company any justice to not get the bill paid. So therefore, they want to do all that they can to help you get the bill paid, because it matters on both ends. So don't be afraid to communicate with your lenders.
Well, that hot word thing, again, information I've never even heard. You need to do a social media post on the hot words, because that is good. We need the hot words, Dasha. We need the hot words. Okay. So we're talking about debt. You kind of transitioned into debt, which I love. We have a lot of Gen Z, millennials, and I mean, just everybody listening today. Some people have debt, yes. Right? I mean, it could be student loans, credit cards, car loans. So what words of advice can you offer for those? They're interested in home ownership, but they don't know or see a way to pay off the debt and work towards owning the home that they want.
Okay. So dealing with debt can be very overwhelming. We're just going to get that out. It can be very overwhelming. It can be very stressful. And sometimes you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. A few weeks ago, I talked to my community about some of the reasons why I try not to stress about debt. One of the reasons being 9 times out of 10, you are not in debt because you made some poor choice. When we think of communities of color, when we think of marginalized people, we have to consider that most of the debt that we have is by us simply trying to survive because there's a lack of income. Mm-hmm. So when we consider the fault and responsibility of debt, it makes us look at it a little bit differently. And when I think of debt, I don't look at it from a way to say, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I don't look at it from a way to say, oh, I have $50,000 in debt. I need to pay this off by next month. I don't look at things like that. Momentum matters to me more than math. Now, I say this because if we were to financially calculate everything that we owe, of course, it makes sense to try to pay it off as quickly as possible, as soon as possible. But that's not how the human mind works. We're not set up, that way. So by focusing on paying off small amounts and celebrating those small financial wins, it helps you build momentum. You stay motivated while you're working on eliminating the debt. And what I keep in mind is, I may not pay it off today. I may not pay it off next month. But if I continue to chip at this day by day, I'm eventually going to reach the end of this. When I tell you there is so much power in small actionable steps, and you will hear me say this so much, because that momentum to me matters so much more than math, because psychologically we need those small wins. If I'm chipping away at my debt every day and I'm seeing this number decrease every day, I'm going to feel so empowered.
Yes.
I'm going to be so excited. I'm going to want to see this through the end, versus if I'm just looking at this large number every day, I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be easy to give up because that's too overwhelming. So I always encourage people to focus on the momentum, not the math.
Dasha, one thing that I love about you is because you are literally changing perspective, right? Because the battle does start in the mind. Yes. And everything that you're saying, you're making these steps towards not only just home ownership, getting out of debt, raising our credit score. You are making it attainable, because I'm horrible with sayings, but it's something about we don't want to eat the whole cow at one time. You take it bite by bite, and we have to be reminded. Oh my gosh, girl, that's so good.
I mean, that's the best way. When you think of tackling debt, eliminating debt, that is the best way to look at it, because so many other factors matter. How can a person, when we're talking about communities that are impacted by so many different other financial barriers, lack of income, when we think about that, it's almost impossible to expect us to be able to pay off debt quickly. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I mean, we
Right.
see the success stories. We see that people are able to pay off debt very quickly, but that is not everyone's story. And just because it may take someone a little bit longer, it may take you 3 years, 5 years, it doesn't mean that your story or your journey is not as equally beneficial
Sure.
or as equally powerful. So for me, I look at finances, anything related to finances, in small increments. I'm very self-aware. Large numbers intimidate me. So
Yes.
when I see someone may say, oh, let's focus on $20,000 in 5 years. I don't see $20,000. I see $300, a little bit over $300 every month for 5 years. That's way more attainable
Yes.
for $333 every month for 5 years than just looking at this large number, $20,000. I'm going to get intimidated. I'm going to get overwhelmed. I'm going to probably drop the ball because all I see is this large number hovering over me. But if you give me a small goal,
Yeah.
I'm going to knock that out of the park, which is why I always encourage anybody that's saving money, that's paying off debt, to focus on the small actionable steps, because ultimately you are going to get there. It's leading to the big goal. And it's so important to look at it that way.
That's good, Dasha. Lord, small actionable steps.
Yes.
Okay. Look, I know I'm hosting y'all, but I'm writing down stuff too. I'm a student and a host at the same time. Okay. So the chat is blowing up. So I got to get to a couple of questions in the chat. This one says, I have student loans that are current, but the balance is high. How is this affecting my credit score?
So it ultimately depends on how the student loans are reporting. And what I have learned in the past and what I've seen lately with mortgage lending is that student loans, it's moving from a space where they held a lot of weight versus being more socially acceptable to have them. They do have an impact, but as long as they are current and they're not reporting negatively, you should be okay. It's especially one of the things to pay attention to right now with a lot of the freezes that is happening with student loans. Be aware of when that freezes lift, how your student loans are going to report. Also be in communication with your student loan lender about any type of programs that they want to have. You basically want to make sure and be aware of how the student loans are reporting on the credit score, on the credit report, which is going to determine how they impact your score.
Okay. And then, okay. That makes a lot of sense. This is a good one too. Is there a way to have my rent payments reported to credit?
So there are a lot of third-party financial fintech companies that do report your rent payments to your credit. You would definitely have to do some research there to figure out what would be the best option for you. I do know that they are a ton. I personally have not used them, but I am aware that they do exist. I would also say check with your not your mortgage company, but your landlord or your property management company to see if that's something that they could implement. Like, I know for a lot of people who are rent from private owners, it's easier to have a conversation, with them, because you will be talking directly to the owner and suggest that to them. That may be something that they're willing to implement to report to the credit bureaus. But I do know that there are a lot of third-party fintech companies that have came out over the last decade that you will pretty much pay them and then they'll do the reporting to the credit bureaus that you're paying your rent on time. Yeah,
Okay.
Someone mentioned it. I just saw the Experian Boost. That is one.
Okay. Good. Great information. So this question is, how do you suggest we recover from financial setbacks? How do I remain motivated to get back up on my feet, which is what we've been talking about, tackling that debt, little step by step. Yeah.
I think exactly that, step by step. You don't have to do everything at one time. When we think about getting back on our feet, what does that look like? Does that mean getting out of debt? Does that mean building a savings account? Does that mean bringing our bills up to date? Consider what that looks like for you and tackle it one step at a time. I think so easily when we see what other people are doing, or we see someone else have this success story like, oh, I became a millionaire overnight. Of course, we're gonna feel like, why is that not me? That should be me.
Yes.
But understand that everyone's situation is different. And just because your situation is not theirs does not mean that it won't be successful. Tackle it one day at a time. Prioritize what is most important. What do you need done right now? I can't say as people started to recover from the pandemic financially, one of the things that was very important was income. That's not something that's going to change overnight. So you tackle that one step at a time.
Yes, that's so good. Okay. I cannot believe we're almost running out of time. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to get to. Okay. So we're talking about buying homes. We've touched on credit. We've touched on trying to tackle our debt. Another very important factor is savings.
Yes.
It costs when you are about to buy a home. Yeah, it's true. We do have those great programs where they help offset some of the upfront costs, like your down payment, your closing costs. But if we keep it all the way real, we're still going to need more money. You know, you got to come to the closing table with a certain amount of cash. Once you're in your new home, you're responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep. So we do need to start saving.
Yes.
Now on your Instagram page, I screenshotted it because I was like, I love this. On her Instagram, you guys, is The Broke Black Girl. You gave baby steps on how to just even build $1,000 emergency fund. So let's talk about establishing savings when buying a home. Give us some practical advice. You got it. Look, y'all know you got it.
So yeah, that is a very great start. And with that $1,000 savings fund, what we did was we just took a small amount that we put to the side every single month, different amount. I don't think there was anything more than $150. And I even think some was as low as $34, but just breaking those amounts up over a period of time, you will be able to save $1,000. And basically what that breaks down to is setting a realistic savings goal on a realistic timeline. Those two together are vital when it comes to saving money. When it comes to saving money, you have to be very real and honest with yourself. You have to understand that you can't set a goal of saving $30,000 in 30 days when you probably only make $6,000 per month. You have to consider that. And again, this is being self-aware. This is not anything to feel bad about. It is not anything to feel ashamed about. You're being self-aware. So now that you know what you can and can't do, it allows you to set realistic savings goal on a realistic timeline so that you can ultimately reach whatever the large goal is. It's 20,000, 30,000. You'll be able to start small. Find so many different ways to save money, even if it's saving change from purchases, like rounding up. If it's saving a few dollars here and there, the small amounts, they add up and they matter. And I always tell people, when you think of saving money, there's two things that are going to have to happen. The income is either going to have to go up or the expenses are going to have to go down. If you have cut everything that you can from the budget, I'm talking about unused subscriptions, maybe you lowered your food bill, any area that you can think of where you can save on expenses. If you have exhausted yourself in that area, then the only other option is to increase the monthly income in some way. It can be by new job, it can be by side hustle, it can be by asking for a raise. The income or the expenses has to change so that you can use whatever is left over to put to the side. And again, it is not something you have to do in a short amount of time. You can be proactive instead of reactive. If you know that you want to purchase a home within the next 5 years, the time to start saving is now. Because if you start now, the amount that you need to save per week or per month is going to be very low in comparison if you wait until the year before you want to purchase a home and try to start saving money.
Planning ahead. Think about it. With your, and I'm going to share it with everybody, but with your emergency fund $1,000 savings plan that is super attainable. If we would have started this 10 years ago, we would already have $10,000 saved up. And I want them to understand. January, you're literally saving $30. February, $70. March, $80. Nothing goes over $130 for the month. So they vary. By the end of the year, you have your $1,000. And you could use this small attainable goal sheet and literally, if you say, okay, I want $2,000 by the end of the year, just times everything by 2. Instead of saving $30, you save $60 that month. And when you put it into perspective like that, you're so right. Again, it's the same concept of that little by little knocking that debt down. It's the little by little saving a lot of money. And I think what's so important about what you did, Dasha, is you gave us a number, because if you don't have an exact number, we always say, I'm gonna save a little here, a little there. We never do. But if you say, no matter what this month, I'm saving $100 this month, that means save that money, and anything outside of that, you have to fluctuate everything else, right?
Yes. I always tell people that saying I want to save money is an empty goal. It sounds like something you should be saying, but saying I want to save money, that's an empty goal. But saying every month I'm going to put $100 to the side out of each paycheck, now that's a goal, because now we have a number. We have a timeline, where the money is going to come from. Now we have actually set a goal that we can reach. But just throwing a number out there, that's empty, because, okay, that could be $5. All you said was you wanted to save money. But when you stick it to a number, you have something now that holds you accountable, something you can track your progress on, and it makes it 10 times easier to actually accomplish that goal once you tie it to a number. And for me, what I do for my audience, again, is to change your perspective, is I take the large number and I break it down so small to the point where it's like, okay, how can you really argue, with that? Because now you see it's possible. And that's all that you are doing, is making sure that the goals that you are trying to reach now becomes possible, because you're breaking them down to small increments, small actionable increments.
I love it. Dasha, this has been amazing. Like, I have so much more, but I know that we're about to run out of time. First of all, kudos to you. Your knowledge is impeccable at such a young age. And I love the fact that you're using the information that you know to empower others, which is very, very, very important. If you could just leave us, if there's one thing that you want our audience to take away from today about, how to get our financial house in order, what would that be?
I would say self-awareness is probably going to be your saving grace. Not everything with finances has to do with numbers, has to do with money, as much as it has to do with you being self-aware of what you need financially, what you have going on financially, what you can and can't afford, and being so deeply involved in your finances. And I say that because there is not one person that is going to care more or be involved more with your finances than you. So being self-aware of where you are, what you have going on with your finances, is probably the best thing that you can do when you are thinking about getting your financial house in order.
Oh, that's self-aware. It can be tough sometimes, but it's the best thing you can do.
It's very necessary. It can be.
It is.
It can be tough, but this is why we have events like this, and we have online communities like mine, because while it is tough, you now see you are surrounded around like-minded people that are willing to walk this journey with you, even if it means having to hold your hand in certain cases. But if you are first able to say, this is where I am, this is what I need, there is a community available for you to help you through this process.
Amen. You cannot change what you can't confront. And I like how you said that. I think we're all sitting in this room today realizing that we are not alone. We all need a certain amount of help, and we have to look inward. And then we have our tribe today. Thank you for being a part of the tribe. Dasha, you are absolutely amazing. Real quick, how can they follow you on Instagram? I know Blaine put it in the chat, but let them know really quick.
Yes, well, of course, thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing. You can follow me across all social media handles at The Broke Black Girl. It's spelled exactly how it sounds. The Broke Black Girl on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yes. Dasha, you're amazing. Thank you so much. I wish we had 20 more minutes. I have like a bunch of other questions to ask you, but we'll have to have you back and connect soon, okay?
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
All right, have a good one. You guys, I told you today is going to be amazing, and we are just getting started. I saw in the chat a bunch of people asking about down payment assistance. We do have that panel coming up as well. So just hold on. We have so much more amazing information. We have experts coming in. I want to remind everybody, we do have breakout sessions, panel discussions, all designed to dig deeper and empower you to make your dream of home ownership a reality. Don't forget that in the chat, again, we have Dasha's social media handles there. And our first round of breakout sessions are going to begin in literally 1 minute, 11 a.m. on the dot. Our options are first time buyer mistakes to avoid with the Mr. Cooper Group. We also have making home ownership affordable with Prosperity Home Mortgage. And we also have our first session presented in Spanish, which is the mortgage options for those with I-10 and DACA and non-citizens. Okay. So I will be back at 12 o'clock as you guys go into your breakout sessions. I'll be back around 11:45. I'll see you guys here at 11:45. So go ahead and go into your breakout sessions and be sure to check back to the Habitat website to join those if you're not already there. All right. We'll see you guys soon. Oh, and when we come back, y'all, we have an amazing panel discussion moderated by the incredible Tashara Parker from WFAA Channel 8. And we're going to be giving away our first raffle prizes. All right. I'll see you guys soon.